May 18, 2012. Kuala Lumpur. Inside the executive boardroom of a national wealth fund, compliance officers sign off on a massive, multi-billion-dollar international bond offering managed by Goldman Sachs. The state officials believed they were launching a historic sovereign capital initiative designed to fund critical infrastructure and transform the Malaysian economy. The entire sovereign treasury was systematically hollowed out from the inside, transformed into a private liquidity pipeline before the ink on the contracts could dry. The architect of the operation was Jho Low, a brilliant, hyper-connected financial operative who held no official government title. Low recognized that the Malaysian Sovereign Wealth Fund, known as 1MDB, possessed a fatal operational vulnerability. Its oversight committee was completely consolidated under a single, unchallenged political authority. He realized that the global banking sector rarely interrogates the underlying ownership of an offshore fund, if the transaction is backed by the sovereign guarantee of a nation-state. By establishing a ghost shell company in the British Virgin Islands with a title that perfectly mirrored a legitimate Middle Eastern investment matrix, Low weaponized Wall Street's blind hunger for massive underwriting fees. He single-handedly manipulated global investment banks into transferring state capital into a closed-loop network of private accounts. He had discovered the ultimate structural loophole. In a global financial system built on the prestige of sovereign nations, you can hijack a country's entire economic future if you control the pen of the prime minister. To sustain an unverified $3.5 billion cash drain against international regulatory compliance teams, Low targeted a profound systemic vulnerability: the banking sector's absolute blindness to layered shell networks. In a standard financial audit, compliance teams trace the ultimate beneficial owner of a fund. Low completely paralyzed this baseline safeguard. He fragmented the stolen billions across a chaotic, multi-jurisdictional matrix of offshore havens, moving the capital from Malaysia through Saudi Arabian proxies and into secure Swiss vaults within a matter of hours. The administrative logistics were fastidiously executed. Low utilized an internal division of a Swiss bank called Brazen Sky to hold what he claimed were billions of dollars in liquid fund units. In reality, the vault held absolutely nothing but a fabricated paper trail. To freely inject this massive volume of stolen state capital into the Western economy without triggering global anti-money laundering alarms, Low systematically transformed the cash into physical, high-prestige assets. He bought up luxury Manhattan real estate, priceless post-impressionist art, and even financed a major Hollywood film celebrating hyper-capitalist greed. To the global financial elite, the looted treasury of a developing nation had been visually and legally laundered into the highest echelons of Western high society. The architecture of the deception sustained itself for nearly 3 years because senior international bankers frequently signed off on the anomalous wire transfers, completely blind to the reality that they were processing the largest kleptocracy heist in human history. The system finally shattered due to a localized internal rupture: the leak of a private data server. In 2015, an executive director at an energy joint venture associated with the fund fell out with the syndicate. He downloaded a massive, unencrypted archive containing thousands of internal emails, bank statements, and wire confirmations from the shadow network. The whistleblower transferred the entire digital ledger to investigative journalists. When forensic accountants cross-referenced the raw data, the math completely collapsed. They discovered that a state-backed investment company that claimed to hold billions in cash reserves was actually sitting on an empty ledger of manufactured assets. The Middle Eastern Sovereign Wealth Fund that had supposedly guaranteed the bonds had never received a single dollar. Jho Low had accidentally left a permanent digital blueprint detailing exactly how state-backed loans were being used to pay off international gambling debts. The exposure triggered an immediate, multi-agency global crackdown. The U.S. Department of Justice bypassed local political blocs, launching massive asset seizures and issuing international arrest warrants for the conspirators. The exposure of the 1MDB heist triggered an immediate, systemic collapse across the global financial compliance landscape, forcing elite Wall Street institutions into historic criminal settlements and causing a total political revolution in Malaysia. When the true scope of the sovereign theft fractured the public trust, The Malaysian electorate systematically voted out the ruling regime for the first time in its modern history. The sitting prime minister was arrested, tried, and sentenced to a historic prison term for his direct signature on the fraudulent transactions. The macroeconomic devastation left the Malaysian public saddled with billions of dollars in national debt, while Jho Low vanished into the global shadow economy, becoming an international fugitive protected by fake passports. Goldman Sachs was forced to pay over $5 billion in global penalties, the largest white-collar penalty of its kind, for its systemic compliance failure. The 1MDB scandal permanently altered the regulations of sovereign wealth tracking, forcing international clearinghouses to implement rigid, non-negotiable verification protocols for state-backed accounts. It proved that the ultimate vulnerability of the modern financial framework is not a gap in technological encryption, but a global banking system that treats elite prestige as a substitute for moral validation. It left behind an enduring rule for modern markets. If the greed is intense enough, a single operative with a network of shell companies can steal an entire nation's wealth, right up until the ledger catches up.